In the community, we have individuals that were brought here when they were 6 months, a year old, and they were brought in without papers by their parents, and they have lived all their life in the United States. In some cases, where they came from China or the Dominican Republic, Colombia, they have never gone back, or they came from Ghana, or they came from Trinidad or Jamaica. But one thing that I wanted to stress is what the brother raised about the question of medical care. What happens in the undocumented immigrant community, because people are afraid of being deported, sometimes they wait until they're extremely sick before they go to an emergency room. And all of us know that the best place to get medical care is not an emergency room. You need a primary care doctor. But the problem is, when you're an undocumented worker, you do not qualify for anything. You do not qualify for welfare, you do not qualify for Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, or any of the other government programs. So I think this issue of legalizing, creating a way that people can come out of the shadows and become contributors to this society is extremely important. And I think this is the first time in many years that with our President Barack Obama, we have the opportunity of getting comprehensive immigration reform and a pathway that people can legalize their status and become citizens in this country. And the other thing that I wanted to add in the question of health care is that hospitals don't get compensated through Medicare or Medicaid for that care. That's what is called charity care. But there is a pool, not a big one, of money in the state that tries to compensate for that care. But that also puts a burden on the hospitals, because at a time of fiscal crisis and cutbacks, there is not that much to go around. So legalizing, creating comprehensive immigration reform will go a long way in addressing all of this concern.
One more question. If these children who come from other countries, one of the loopholes would be for them to be adopted?
That's really hard.
Yeah.
Really hard. The only way they can become legal permanent residents is first they have to be abandoned by their parents, have nobody here, be minors, and then there is a law that they can apply for some kind of visa, and then they have to go through a whole process. Remember, they are children, they are minors, and if they don't have somebody that advocate for them, they will lose even the chance to get their status. But if they have advocacy, what happens is they go through a process after the visa, they can obtain legal permanent status as abandoned children. But imagine, their parents had to leave them and never come back. That's the only way.
The other question, and I think that's a very deep concern, is that it's one thing about children, but we have a lot of adults who are in their 40s, in their 30s, 50s. Those individuals look like they're the ones who's hiding real deep, because there's no. What avenue are you suggesting that we do to see if we can get them? Because Obama is only one man, but we have 50 states, we have politicians. Like you said, the majority of politicians come from other countries. As a matter of fact, we have one assemblyman, the first assemblyman in District Mark, and lo and behold, his family, they came from their country. They worked in Jacoby Hospital under my local, and lo and behold, these individuals found ways can there be a way that when you go do lobbying, because I know y'all were up in Albany, I think last week or last, and is there any way that there will be a stance that we get together, your local DC 37, so we can do some lobbying, because that's a very big issue with all city, state jobs. Everybody who's legally got relatives that are illegal.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. Well, our office, my director, Angela Fernandez, she is there all the time. And she's a person that represents our organization very well, trying to lobbying, and we have to speak out, especially when you are a citizen. If you are born or made a citizen, you have to speak out for those who cannot talk. I have seen cases in my office that are really sad. I am a paralegal. I am certified to, no, I am not a lawyer, but I am certified for immigration. And when I see cases of people that have been working 40 years here, and then they fell sick, as they were talking about, they cannot lose one day of job because the boss knows that they are undocumented and is exploiting them. And when they are so sick that they can't work anymore, what happened with this gentleman, he was working more than 40 years. When he went to the hospital, he had a cancer that could have been cured. But because the boss says, if you miss one day, I will fire you. I have a lot of people that can do this job. He waited and waited and waited until he couldn't even walk. And when I saw that gentleman without legs and without arms, after I saw him full, it was really hard for me. We had to speak out because those are things that are happening. I know about a lady that was deported in a hospital bed, in coma, because she came undocumented. She had an accident, she was in coma, they discovered that she was undocumented, she was deported in coma. And of course, she died in my country because the medical help is not the best. If you don't have money, you will die, obviously. And those are things that we see. So we that can speak out should speak out. We have to do something because these are human beings. And many of them are not criminals. They work hard. And many hours that I won't do it because they want a better future for their families. And they do what you don't want to do. So why not? Why not help those people? I personally agree if the person is a criminal, should be deported. I'm sorry, but if you came to this country for a better future, not to become a criminal. But if you are a good person, if you work hard, why not? Because as was said before, we are all immigrants, in a way or another.
We come across that with the new immigration law that they want to pass in Congress, some of the senators and members of the House of Representatives want to link it to the border with Mexico and all that type of thing. I think it's going to be a very difficult thing because if you look at the border, I don't think they can build any wall or anything to do that. So if that's what's going to happen, then I don't think this law is going to be passed if they allow it. That's where we have to insist that regardless of what they have, they still have to pass the law. And then my second is what you just addressed. That people came to this country much earlier on. All that you could work with is just a driver's license and social security. And people have worked and they are about to retire. And I was told that, a friend of mine told that if you work fully that and you go on retirement, you won't get the social security benefit, you're not a citizen.
That's true. You can have paid taxes for 40 years, 50 years, it doesn't matter. if you don't have a legal Social Security, it doesn't matter. You won't get a penny. Even if you pay taxes all those years, you won't get benefits.
And what is sad on this is that a couple of years ago there was a study made, and I don't know, for those of you who remember, we're trying to have the millionaire's tax passed in New York. Your union, 32BJ, and those who worked very hard on that. And one thing that was revealed in a study, that undocumented immigrants and immigrants as a whole pay more taxes than the big, gigantic, multi-million corporations in this country, which is unfair. And you can have millionaires relatively paying less taxes than you and you and you and I or any of us that work, whether we are documented or not. But on the concern that you raised about the unions, yesterday Carolyn mentioned that it was about 100,000 of us were the east side of the Capitol campaigning for immigration reform, and we think that this time we're going to get some sort of a law. And you're right, brother, they want to tie it to border security. But there is a problem in this country. The election results last year showed that there are significant demographic changes happening in the US. So now even people like McCain, senator from the state of Arizona, Rubio, Republican from Florida, are talking about immigration reform because they're trying to make friends, especially with the Latino community. Now they're realizing that they have to change their tune or they might never win another elections in the years ahead in this country. Last year, the Republican Party spent close to $2 billion trying to defeat Barack Obama. That's a lot of dollars. That's two with a lot of zeros behind it. And they walk, I don't know how many of you were glued to television or radio on election night. All of us were. Do you recall how long it took Mitt Romney to come and agree that he lost the election? He was not, he had an acceptance speech. He did not have a defeat speech. So that was a hard wake-up call for the Republicans, for the conservative forces, because they are realizing that the demographics, that the so-called minorities are going to become, or we are becoming, the new majority, the new Americans. The growth in population in this country is in the African American, the Latino, and the Asian communities. We are transforming, just like the European immigrants transformed from the 1600s, what the face of this country was like. We are transforming what the United States is going to be like in the next 100 years. And that's what is giving the wake-up call that now McCain, former candidate in the 2008 election, is wanting to make friends. And I don't know how many of you follow up, but recently the Republican Party had a big meeting and they talk about setting aside, I think it was $10 million to go and send organizers in our communities to begin organizing and talking to us. And you have to sometimes be aware and a little bit leery of Republicans bringing gifts, because you know they're bringing gifts for a reason.
Well, I just want to mention something. Do you know there are 11 million immigrants in this entire country now, and the numbers are growing and growing. Imagine with the next election how many immigrants are going to be here. And I'm talking about those immigrants having babies, children,